Cosmic Encounter is a science fiction-themed strategy board game designed by Future Pastimes. Collectively, Peter Olotka, Jack Kittredge and Bill Eberle, with Bill Norton, and originally published by Eon Games in 1977. In it, each player takes the role of a particular alien species, each with a unique power to break one of the rules of the game, trying to establish control over the universe. In 1992, a new edition of Cosmic Encounter won the Origins Award for Best Fantasy or Science Fiction Board Game of 1991 and placed sixth in the Deutscher Spiele Preis. The game was inducted into the Academy of Adventure Gaming Arts and Design Adventure Gaming Hall of Fame in 1997. Cosmic Encounter is a dynamic and social game, with players being encouraged to interact, argue, form alliances, make deals, double-cross, and occasionally work together to protect the common good. Most editions of the game are designed for 3 to 6 players, although official rules exist for playing with as many as 8 players. Gameplay. Cosmic Encounter is based on a fixed set of rules which are subsequently modified by other elements of the game. Each player begins with a color-coded home system containing 5 planets and 20 ships, formerly referred to as tokens, representing starships that populate these planets as colonies, formerly known as bases. A central warp is used to place defeated ships for all players. The object of the game is to establish 5 colonies on planets outside one's home system. Each player is dealt a hand of 8 or 7, depending on the edition, cards from the Cosmic Deck, which includes 3 types of cards normally: encounter cards, numbered attack cards, and negotiate, formerly compromise, cards, reinforcement cards, and artifact, formerly edict, cards. On a player's turn, they retrieve 1 ship from the warp, and then draw a card from the Destiny deck, containing color-coded cards which indicate which player's system they must attack, using a special hyperspace gate, formerly hyperspace cone, or simply cone indicator. The player selects which opponent on which planet to attack, and then places from 1 to 4 ships on the gate. Both the attacker and defender can ask the other players individually to ally with their side, committing up to 4 ships to either side of the conflict. Once allies have committed, the attacker and defender both select encounter cards from their hands to place face down, then reveal them. If both cards are attack cards, the total of the attack value and number of allied ships are added for both sides, and the side with the larger value wins, with the defending player winning in case of ties. If the attacking side wins, the defender's colony is lost and all ships and ally ships are sent to the warp, while the attacker and their allies gain colonies on that planet. If the defending side wins, the attacker and allies ships are sent to the warp, and defending allies gain a bonus of either a ship from the warp or a new card from the deck for each ship risked. If one side plays a negotiate card against a numbered card, they immediately lose, but they, though not their allies, get compensation from the victor, such as by drawing cards from the victor's hand. If both players use negotiate cards, they have 1 minute to make a deal, such as exchanging colonies or cards from their hands, while all allies are sent back to their owners' colonies. Allies get nothing in this situation. If a deal can't be made, both players lose ships as a penalty. Play then proceeds to the next player. To aid in timing, each turn is broken down into a number of phases, and cards and powers will typically indicate which phases the game elements can be played in. In particular, artifacts cards, which generate an immediate effect such as releasing all ships from the warp, may only be played during specific phases which will be listed on the card, while certain features of alien powers can only be triggered in specific phases. the game becomes complex with the introduction of alien powers. These are typically drawn randomly at the start of the game and known to all players. However, variants exist where players can select their powers, use multiple powers simultaneously, or hide their powers until they are used. Each power gives the player a way to bend the core rules to their advantages, typically in one of the following ways. Continuous effects, such as the Macron, where each of its ships is valued as 4 ships during combat. Combat resolution effects, such as the Void, where any ship that loses against it is removed from the game entirely instead of going to the warp. Victory condition changes, such as Masochist, who wins if it loses all its ships. Role-playing elements, such as the Sniveler, where the player, if in a losing position, may whine to the other players to gain benefits. A player's alien power is only active if they have 3 or more colonies in their home system, and if lost, can be regained by taking back a 3rd colony. More advanced optional game components can add further levels of complexity and unpredictability. No edition has all of the optional components. They include flares, cards that grant a limited version of an alien power, or, if used by the player that possesses that power, a significant advantageous gain. Olotka, in-game currency that allows more control of resources, such as buying more cards for one's hand. Multiple alien powers affect Olotka. Moons. Colonies on moons do not count towards victory conditions, but occupying one grants access to its special ability. Moon abilities can be powerful, such as retaining an alien power when it would normally be lost, while others are best described as silly, such as forcing the owner to speak in rhyme. Special planetary systems, printed on the reverse side of the normal systems in most prints of Cosmic Encounter. The special systems have additional rules in regards to the player's initial setup, colonies, and victory conditions, technologies, an array of boosts and special abilities, which must be researched for several turns before they can be put into play. Technology cards are placed face down on the table. The owner may move one ship from a planet onto the card at the start of any player's turn. Once the number of ships on the card meets the card's cost, the technology is completed, the ships return, and the card is flipped face up. The power of technology cards varies wildly. The Xenon Lasers card costs 2 ships, and its owner may change encounter scores by 1 point. The Omega Missile card costs 8 ships, and destroys a planet. Rewards. A deck's worth of incentives. Reward cards can only be drawn by victorious defensive allies. Reward cards include kickers, multipliers for encounter cards, and rifts, booby traps that free ships from the warp, or send ships there if they ever change hands. Many players have created their own, homemade powers, and have posted these along with other various game extensions on the internet. Major variants include multiple power games, in which players have multiple alien powers at once, and hidden power games, in which powers are not revealed until their first use. Official variants include rules for adding a 7th or 8th player, and there has been a version providing enough components for a 10-player game, when combined with a previous release. History. The original version of Cosmic Encounter had exactly 6 alien powers and was designed for up to 6 players. This edition was nearly published by Parker Brothers in the mid-1970s. When it was not, the designers founded Eon Games to publish it. The first Eon edition was released in 1977. It allowed up to 4 players and included 15 alien powers. Over the next 5 years, Eon released 9 expansions, adding 60 more alien powers, components for a 5th and 6th player, and several new types of pieces, including flare cards, money, Olotka, moons, and special power planet systems. The artwork on these early editions included images painted by Dean Morrissey. Eon published two versions of the base game, differing only in box art. In 1986, the game was republished in the U.S. by West End Games. The game used the same deck of cards and number of players, and the same powers, with 5 additional powers from Eon expansion sets number 1 and number 2. However, the cards and tokens were incompatible with the Eon edition. Meanwhile, in the UK, the game was published by Games Workshop. The GW edition supported 6 players, with powers from the Eon base set and some of the first 3 expansions. In 1991, the game was licensed by Mayfair Games. Mayfair published Cosmic Encounter, an expansion called More Cosmic Encounter, 1992, and a stripped-down introductory version of the game called simply Cosmic, 1995. The Mayfair edition revised some powers from the original Eon set, introduced many more, and significantly revised some of the existing components. It also introduced several new components. By combining the 3 Mayfair products, it is possible to play a 10-player game. In 2000, Avalon Hill, by then a division of Hasbro, published a simplified version in one box with plastic pieces. This version was limited to 20 powers and 4 players. On August 17, 2007, Fantasy Flight Games announced plans to reprint the game in 2008. Game designer Kevin Wilson gave demonstrations of the Fantasy Flight Cosmic Encounter version at Gen Con 2008, and the game was released in December. This edition included 50 aliens, flare cards, a new technology variant, and support for 5 players. Since 2008, Fantasy Flight has released 6 expansion sets. Each set of aliens includes their alien sheets and flare cards, along with any special tokens certain aliens may need. Extra players include 20 ships, 5 planets, and encounter cards, all of the corresponding colors. Online version. In 2003, original designer Peter Olotka and partners launched a new version called Cosmic Encounter Online, that may be played over the internet. As of 2010, this version has 35 powers, including 4 new aliens and 2 more that are designed for online play, such as Dork, which blocks other players' screens. Reception. Bruno Faiduti comments, "The box for Eon's first edition of Cosmic Encounter proclaimed the science fiction game for everyone, and, indeed, long before today's collectible card games, live-action role-playing games, and massively multiplayer online RPGs, Cosmic Encounter was the game for everyone." Quote, Tom Vassell, one of the most notable board game reviewers and the most prominent supporter of this game, has named it as his favorite board game. Influence. Cosmic Encounter was one of the first commercial board games with a simple set of core rules and a specific set of modifications to those rules for each player. Future Pastimes employed this technique in some of their other designs, notably the Dune board game. Steve Jackson was influenced by Cosmic Encounter when he designed Illuminati in 1982. Each player has a special power as well as a special victory condition. This design element has become more widespread in board games since then. It is especially applicable to games where the players represent individual characters in a role-playing game-like situation. For example, Talisman and Arkham Horror, both originally published in the 1980s. The possibility of an organic and completely different experience every time one plays was one of the influences in the design of the card game Magic: The Gathering. Magic designer Richard Garfield has often cited Cosmic Encounter as being influential in the design of Magic: The Gathering, going so far as to say, quote, "Magic's Most influential ancestor is a game for which I have no end of respect. Cosmic Encounter. Quote. Hemmings, Fred. June to July 1978. Open Box. Comic Encounter. White Dwarf. Games Workshop. 7. 18. ISSN 02658712. Cosmic Encounters Facebook. 1. Page. Cosmic Encounter Online. Cosmic Encounter Online. Fantasy Flight Games. Cosmic Encounter page. Cosmic Encounter Library showing the complete version history along with photos and components as well as general CE information. Theodosy Tower. Com interview with game designer Peter Olotka. June 13, 2005. GameSpy. Com interview with game designer Peter Olotka. January 2002. Cosmic Encounter at Board Game Geek.